I'm Danny, and this is the Scream Princess podcast. Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to the Scream Princess podcast with me, Danny, and I'm here today with Al Friswell. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you for inviting me, Danny.
So I'm going to tell a little story. So there was a time when I had this idea, this brainwave at the end of 2024 for this podcast, and I sent it was a generic email that I sent out to, a fair few people, and some got back to me and some didn't. One guy actually got back to me, and he was actually angry that I had sent a generic email. He was like, well, you could have made this more personal and sent it just to me. And I was like, okay, that's hard work, isn't it? But Al didn't get back to me at all.
Well, I was trying to be original.
Yeah.
I was trying to be different.
It was trying to be different, and we went out. What happened in January? It was Horror on Sea in January, and I'd come down a day or so early because I thought, I can get in a little bit of sightseeing. Someone that lived in London for 16 years, but it wasn't sights. There was a couple of exhibitions I wanted to go to, so I came down early for those, and then Tony Marden, T-Mards, was like, come for dinner with the Cads of Horror, which we'll talk about. And Al was there, and I was like, Al, you shouldn't get back to me on this podcast. And then you felt terrible because you actually didn't get the message. So
No, I didn't. No, I actually didn't. I looked back at the actual dates of messages that we sent to each other, and that simply wasn't the date, so it simply didn't happen.
No.
For some reason, the message simply didn't get through. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, but he's here now. So obviously, I twisted his arm during the course of this dinner, and here we are. So this is actually, I've been doing podcasts for a day here, and this is the first time I've had a glass of wine.
Okay.
And actually, I think this is the first time I've had any alcohol during any of my podcasts, which is odd, because whenever I go on somebody else's podcast, you can guarantee there's always a glass of Prosecco or wine in my hand. But I feel like for mine, when I'm hosting, I should be able to hold a show.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but I think you're all going to be my last one today, and then I know one of my friends is turning up, so we were like, all bets are off then.
Okay. Fair enough.
So Al, tell me about what it is you do. Do you have a job title? So you actually do a few things.
I suppose you could say I'm an artist. I guess I work in special effects. I do quite a few things. I mean, I'm kind of, my kind of work is fairly sort of eclectic in terms of creativity, I think. The stuff I grew up with as a kid, I grew up with King Kong and Ray Harryhausen's films and Famous Monsters of Filmland and all sorts of things. Frank Frazetta paintings, comic books. I grew up with so many things that inspired my interest in different areas, different fields. And so my work now is principally in special effects, like stop motion, makeup effects, model making, sculpture. My great privilege, my great incredible thing, that I actually got to work for Ray Harryhausen in the last 3 years of his life as a restorer for his foundation, which I'm still doing now. So that kind of is my principal job. It's one of my main things. It's certainly a thing I'm proudest of. Certainly a thing that I think so much of. It's such a wonderful.
That's incredible, saying that somebody who's grown up on that to then kind of end up really working with him and for him, is a dream.
It's something that I'm still. I mean, I've said to many people, I can't get my head around it now because it's something I've never taken for granted. How could I? It is something. If you told me when I was 13 that I'd be doing this, it would have killed me because I was such a fan. I was so in love with these films, and my dream was somehow to be involved in his world, to do something that was similar to him. I never thought. I phoned him. I spoke to him on the phone when I was 11. And
that's amazing.
It was incredible. But I never thought I'd actually. The idea of working for it was something that was a dream. It was something that you had as an ambition, but I didn't think it would come true. I thought it was something.
Did you phone him at 11 and say, "Hi, I'd like to work for you when I grow up"?
I wrote a letter to him. I read an article in a magazine about him, an interview, and I wrote a letter.
Right.
And I put my phone number. And my parents said, he gets hundreds of letters like this every week, possibly every day, and he's not going to get back because he's just too busy. And 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from his wife who said, Ray loves your letter. I put some dinosaur drawings in there, and he said, we love your dinosaur. He loved your dinosaur. He was in America at the time.
Right.
He said, you want to phone him next week, he'll speak to you. He gave me the phone number.
That is incredible. And you know what? These days, with social media, celebrities or, whoever you idolise, they're so accessible. Everybody has an Instagram, everybody has a Facebook or a Twitter, and, it's easy. I mean, they don't all run their own social media accounts, but you can basically get in touch with anybody now if you want to. But back then, even when I was growing up, it was fan clubs you could maybe write to, and you knew it wasn't them responding for the most part. But yeah, it was very difficult to actually get in touch with anyone. I suppose if you wrote to a studio or something, it would go through a receptionist or whoever opens a mail, and then maybe to someone else. So that's like a 1 in a million chance, really, for that to have gotten through.
Well, how it happened with Ray was I read a magazine which had an interview with him, and it was the first thing I'd really read, that all his films were in there and what he'd done, and then I thought suddenly, who this guy is? And I wrote a letter Dad wrote a letter actually for me, to the editor of the magazine. And they wrote back to me within 3 days, unbelievable.
That's so nice.
And he said, well, we can't give you the address of Ray because we get interviews with people on the basis that we don't give away those kind of details. But if you write to Ray, care of the National Film Theatre, they will know where he lives and they will likely pass his letter to him. So we wrote this letter, and my dad helped me with it, and I put the phone number in, and we thought, we just put it out there to the National Film Theatre. And 2 weeks later, Ray's wife phoned me and said, Ray loves your letter and he's in America, but here's our phone number and you can phone back next week if you want to speak to him.
That is
and
amazing.
I was 11 and it nearly did. I couldn't believe it. Absolutely couldn't believe it.
And then from that point, did you really think this is what I want to do? Or did you kind of do all kinds of other things? And,
it's difficult to really articulate this, but I knew what I wanted when I was 5. It was that early.
I wish I did. I wish I had a clue. I'd have been an archaeologist at this
Well,
point.
I was 5 years old, and the original King Kong was on TV one evening, and my mum said, "There's this really old black and white film coming on, but you might like it." And
How did she know when you were 5? Like that's your thing. It's my 5-year-old who's going to like this kind of giant.
Well, both because I was 5. She might have thought I might like monsters or dinosaurs or whatever. I don't have any interest.
That's a scary film for a 5-year-old.
Not to me, because I thought it was brilliant. I thought it's a scary film, but I just thought it was magical, and it kind of, I don't know, I just knew that was where I'm going.
So what was it about that film you loved? Was it, because I'd say for a 5-year-old, it'd be like, I love the big monkey, or or did you like the monster aspect of it? Did you love it because it was a monkey? Because if I was 5, I'd be like, oh, it's a monkey, and I love the monkey, or not, it's an ape, but. Did you love the horror aspect of it?
No, there was no cute aspect for me. There was nothing like that appealed to me. It was a monster movie with dinosaurs, and it was just incredible. I didn't know how it was done. I was 5, didn't have a clue, and it was just the magic of the way it looked, the visuals. I didn't know about any animation. I didn't know how it was done. I didn't have any idea how it was done, but it was just so dynamic. It was just an amazing. I'd never seen a film like that with that kind of imagery. Or
no, because most 5-year-olds are watching like the Care Bears movie, or
This is
like,
true.
Of course, you've never seen a film like
true.
that.
So it kind of it didn't exactly freak me out, but I thought this is amazing, and I started to build models. My parents are very good to me. They're very, very tolerant, very understanding, and supportive. And they started buying me plasticine, and I started building. Miniature trees and dinosaurs and all sorts, and I started making these things, and I just fell in love with it. It was just, I don't know where it comes from. Who knows?
Are your parents into horror films, or?
My mum loved horror movies. My mum was very interested. My dad was more into documentary, realistic things, but he would watch horror films.
Right.
He would watch those things. And when I got older and I got into this properly, my dad very much appreciated the technical aspects of how these films were made. But my mum was much in. My mum used to read the pan books of horror stories, and she used to read them to me as a kid. They kind of knew. I think what happened, I used to start reading monster magazines when I was very young, and I think they knew that I was much more interested in the technical aspects. So they knew I knew it was rubbish. It was just people wearing makeup, and it was special effects. They knew that I didn't go to bed thinking Frankenstein was under my bed. I knew it was Boris Karloff being made up by Jack Pierce. And they knew it was like stuff being put onto his body, and it was plastic and rubber. And they knew that I knew it was all fake. to create the effect of a movie. And so they were kind of safe in letting me watch this kind of stuff because
that's really different, because most kids wouldn't see it like that at all. Most kids would very much see like horror, not like. But yeah, that's really interesting. So your mind must have worked very differently to most.
Well, I just grew up. I used to read magazines and I used to show photographs of actors being made up, like Foriaco and Famous Monsters. You see Boris Karloff with Jack Pierce putting makeup. So even at the age of 6, I knew that this was fake because this guy's putting makeup on someone. And so I those magazines probably should have been only accessible to 12-year-olds or 13-year-olds, but my parents had blessed them, used to buy them for me and they'd let me read them. And I saw like the Lon Chaney being made up as the Wolfman by Jack Pierce again, putting the rubber nose on his face. And so I got the message very quickly that these things were actually fake. It was actors playing these parts. But I love the technique of it. I love the technicality of it. So even at that young age, I had no clue how things like King Kong were made. I didn't know it was stop motion. I didn't know it was miniatures. I didn't know what it was. But I knew it was somehow fabricated. I knew it was theatre.
Yeah.
I didn't believe any of it was real.
It's real.
And I love the scary stuff. I mean, if there was a scary film on TV, I used to enjoy. I remember The Haunting.
Yes.
That we, and the what's in 1962, The Haunting, 1963, I think, The Haunting, with Russ Tamblyn and Richard Johnson, and I remember my parents let me stay out and watch that, and it frightened them in daylight out of me. I absolutely did, but I thought this is great.
Yeah.
I loved the fact that it scared me.
Yeah.
It did actually. It certainly didn't put me off. It was an attractive thing that these films could have, because I knew there was nothing really to it, and so any film that actually had that effect on me was a thing that I admired. I respected the film that actually scared me.
Yeah, I think with a lot of things like The Haunting, it's a lot of it's like the score, it's the ambience, and it's the suspense that's built up by more than music, I think, sometimes with those kind of paranormal style films, because I would love to believe in the paranormal, but nothing's really happened for me to go, right, that's definitely a thing. I mean, there's been small things we've talked about on the podcast before, but nothing's like, that couldn't have been anything else. But when I watch a paranormal film and it's done well, that will scare me more than a gore film or whatever.
I think because with a film that's physically violent, we can understand where it's coming from because it's something we can touch, it's tactile and it's reality. But a paranormal thing is something that is outside of our realm of understanding of science, or it's something we can't rationalise it. So if it exists, we can't explain it. And physical violence we can explain because it's way easy, but a paranormal thing we can't. So I think the reason why it scares people is that because it's something. Give it like 10 or 15 or 20 years or 100 years, and we may be able to explain scientifically what ghosts are. And once that happens, if it happens, they won't be scary anymore because we say, oh, it's happening because of this.
Yeah.
So
What gets me is that they didn't really exist before Victorian times. And you never get a ghost wearing an Adidas tracksuit, do you? They're all like historical figures.
This is the thing. We don't know, do we?
When you get back to the paranormal in a little while, though, that's going to be like part 2. But so from this childhood fascination with the films of Harryhausen and these kind of old school stop motion films, how did you then progress into, obviously you had the rest of your childhood and your teenage years, how did you then progress into finding your way in the door?
Well, as a kid, I was lucky as a kid. I read all these stories about people who were special effects artists and makeup people. They said I was the odd kid out and I was a kid who was like nobody. But as my childhood, everyone was into something. Everyone was into Star Trek or Thunderbirds or like horror movies or the event or something. Everyone was into that. So I was kind of I was not the odd kid out. I was a kid who drew dinosaurs and made dinosaurs, but everyone else was into it. So I was kind of all right. I had a kind of a reasonably. I didn't have this kind of singular childhood where I was separated from other people. Everyone was kind of into what I was doing anyway because they liked it themselves. So I was very lucky. And so I went to college, and my parents, again, very supportive. They were ordinary people, working class people, but they said, okay, you have a go, try it. Don't if you can make a go of it, try that. And I supported that. And the first professional thing, I had some weird. I had kind of a professional with Milt Subotsky, who was the Amicus film director.
Just been chatting about him a little while ago.
Okay. And So I was a teenager. This is crazy. I was a teenager, and he was trying to get the Thongor and the Valley of Demons off the ground.
These titles are great.
And that was the Lynn Carter books.
Mm.
And it was going to happen. And I read this in a magazine, so I sent a letter to the Shepperton Studios, and I got a letter back from Andrew Donnelly, who was the co-producer, and I couldn't believe it. He said, "Oh, we love your photographs you sent us. We love what you've done." I made these things all my life. In answer to your question, I built these things all my life, and I took photographs, and the progression of, like, I suppose my skills advanced a little bit, I guess. So I had loads of pictures of what I was doing, and I sent photographs to the say Amicus. And Andrew Donnelly got back and said, "Well, we'll try and get you off the ground. We'll try and bring you in when this thing happens." And that didn't happen. What they were doing was they were making a film called King Crab, which was based on 2 books from Guy and Smith, Night of the Crabs. And I did some prelim work.
My friend has a poster of that on his wall in his studio in Texas. Joshua Kennedy, I think I've mentioned to you before.
Of course, yeah.
And that is the only reason I've ever heard of that film, which made me smile when you said it.
No, it was in the 70s. It was actually quite a classic. Everyone loved this film. It had about 6 sequels to it. And this was like way after that. And Milton Spice was trying to he wrote a script. And so I did some prelim work, building model crabs and making bits and pieces, and I was a kid at the time, really. So that was my first kind of inroad into the professional side of it. And I did some other bits and pieces, and I kept the faith, so to speak. I just didn't give up. And again, when I was young, a friend of mine who was an art teacher, he was much older than me, and I was at college at the time. He said, "Steven Spielberg's coming over to London to make a cartoon animation film." And he said, "You should try. They're looking for people. They're looking for artists." I said, "Well, my thing is model making, stop motion." Right. And he said, "You draw stuff all the time. You draw these white crazy images." I said, "Well, kind of all sorts of stuff." He said, "Why don't you get in touch?" So I phoned. I got an interview with Steve Hickner.
I love how you're just like, so I just phoned them. I just like, how do you get people's numbers? How do you just phone people? Where do these phone numbers come from?
They had a number. I phoned the number. And I got in touch with Steve Hickner, who's a producer. And he said, "Well, come down and have a chat with us." So I went down with a big portfolio of drawings and whatever. And he liked drawings, he liked the backgrounds, he liked things I'd drawn. Put me in touch with the background designer, who was actually brilliant man. Like classical Disney trained, he's a fantastic artist. And I got a job on American Tail 2, Fireball Goes West.
Is that the one with Somewhere Out There?
No, that's there's a sequel to that. They sing it in that as well, but the sequel is they go into.
Is it There's No Cats in America?
Probably.
I don't know if it's in that tune. That could be the wrong tune.
But it's got a tumbleweed that goes rolling.
But the streets are made of cheese.
I think it might be, but it's a sequel to that anyway. But so I did that for a year, and I loved it because it was my kind of inroad into the film industry. It was cartoon animation, which I've never really done before, but because I understood stop motion, I understood cartoon animation. I got out at work, so I did a test, and they said that was really great, and I was a kid again. But I got a job doing that for a year. And
is this where you're like drawing? And I think I feel like I've seen a TV show where they showed you that you draw, and then you have like a light box thing, and then you like slightly move everything. Was that what you were doing?
Back in the day, it was 24 frames per second, and every single frame is a separate drawing.
Yeah.
So I've got a character with his arm going like this. You draw that hand, and you on a separate sheet you draw that hand, and your separate sheet you draw. So you've got like 35 frames of paper. You have a light box with a light underneath and a camera above looking down.
Yeah.
And you have pegs that actually register the paper with holes in the paper. So you punch it in, and you put that hand and go take a frame, take that piece of paper away, put the second piece of paper, put it in, punch it in the registration pegs, take a frame, take it away. And that's how you used to animate.
That's amazing. But before that was the stop motion. So stop motion was first.
I
mean, that was the kind of only way you would, and I mean, you'd have to create the models, and then I suppose you just move them, and then that kind of didn't disappear. But it became much more rare when animation took over.
Well, stop motion came after because that was I got the job on American Tail. I also worked on a TV series called Little Ghosts for Television in Dean Street in London. And so my background in cartoon animation got me quite a lot of jobs working for different companies. But it was always stop motion. I always wanted to do race stuff.
No, but I mean, like, animation kind of took over in the mainstream from stop motion.
You
kind of went the other way.
It did. It did. It kind of went like that way, yeah, sure. But, and then CG come along, of course.
Yeah.
The CGI come along. So that was...
Which I don't feel like... I feel like I kind of... and I don't know if it's because of my age and when that happened, but like I loved like the old Disney. We've got people doing photo shoots. That's like, if you can hear external noises, that's fine. If like I love the Disney princess movies up until a certain point, and I don't know if it's my age that changed that. And then like the Pixar stuff started coming in, and then I was just I'm out. I zoned out of it. I checked out. It's not the same for me.
Well, it's not. It did when it changed with Jurassic Park and the different.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Jurassic Park.
Sorry.
I love Jurassic Park.
Well, it did change. It changed a lot, and it's kind of not say a shame, but there was a difference in the technique and a difference in the disciplines, because back in the day there was so much real dependence upon the human aspect of this to actually make those frames work correctly. And I'm not disparaging people who, because I've got friends who work in it. I've done it myself. I've worked in it myself with CG stuff, but it's kind of like it's foolproof in some respects because you can't get it wrong anymore.
Because there's a computer.
You can't make
program.
mistakes though, because you can go back in and go back in and go back in, and you can mess around and you can polish it endlessly just to get it correct. So, whereas back in the day, if you got it wrong, you'd have to redraw all those frames, or if it was a model, you'd have to scrap the film entirely and start from scratch. And so those guys working back then, like Disney guys and Ray, they were really on a tightrope, because if you got it wrong, there was no retrieving it. You couldn't rescue it. You couldn't go back and sweeten anything up. You had to just scrap what you'd done and go back. And so there was this real kind of pressure there was time and money, deadlines, schedules. There was a real pressure to get it right the first time, or at least the second or third time. And if you didn't, then there'd be a problem. But now that doesn't exist. So you could, I mean, I don't disrespect the guys who are doing it creatively, because they're geniuses and they're brilliant people. I know quite a lot of them. But there is nevertheless this situation where you can't really make that mistake anymore. You can go, we can do this, we can draw this out, we can do this. And so you could say on some level, is that a better thing? Well,
I suppose it's easier for people.
My attitude is if you're curing heart disease, then that technology really is good.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a creative thing where it should really come from the heart of the artist,
the skill,
you should be able to
the skill as opposed to
you should see the hard work that those guys have put in, and you see like the Disney films like 101 Dalmatians or Lady and the Tramp. You think, oh God, this drawn, every frame is drawn, and you see the muscles move and everything. It's these people drawing this every single frame, and I saw that myself when I was doing it. I'm not comparing myself to those guys, because they were the top people in the world. And Ray was animating 7 skeletons. And remembering every move, those arms and legs were moving, and keeping track and taking one frame and then moving 7 characters.
Do you know how I discovered Harryhausen?
Okay.
I was in a nail shop. This is like the most me version ever. I was in a nail shop.
What, Ray coming?
No, that didn't happen. No, I was in a nail shop in East London getting my nails done, and they had a TV on, and usually they always play like these, I don't know, like Oriental musicals that I don't understand, but this day they had it on silent, and it was just this black and white thing of these, and I could see these dinosaurs, and I think I don't know what was going on. This pterodactyl comes down or something, and there's a girl, and I'm watching it, getting my nails done, thinking, what am I watching? I'm not going to be able to ask them because they won't know. They've just put on the TV and it's just background. And then I went home and I just Googled black and white movie with pterodactyl grabbing girl or something, and it actually came up with Valley of, is it Guanji? Yeah.
It's colour film.
Is it colour film?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they had a black and white TV. I don't know. It was definitely black and white when I watched it. But yeah, I went home and I did a Google, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then I'm like, I actually love this stuff, because I love that it comes from a time where that was the technology. And okay, so it doesn't look like, it's not like a Jurassic Park, like it doesn't look like necessarily such a realistic dinosaur, but I believed it. Like I could watch it and be like, if I was in the time it was made and I was watching that, oh, it was incredible.
Well, I can tell you a story, because I was building a dinosaur for my local museum in East London, a dinosaur exhibit, and we had a situation where
when was there a dinosaur exhibit in East London?
Sorry?
When was there a dinosaur exhibit in East London?
And there is in Valence House Museum, there's a dinosaur that I built, that I made. And we had kids come in over 3 days, or 8-year-olds, and they come in and to see what I was doing, and I was building plasticine dinosaurs for them on request, and they were taking them and painting them and taking photographs and emailing them to us so we could see what they'd done. And we had dinosaur films we were showing on the screen just while we were talking about it, and we had Jurassic Park and various other things. And we had Valley of Guanji, and there's a sequence where Guanji fights with a Styracosaurus, which is like a triceratops with horns. And
I know most Stegosauruses. Triceratops.
You know Styracosaurus?
It's it's not got 3 horns.
It's got spikes on the back of his
Yes.
shoe. Okay. Brilliant.
Because when I was little, I had this set of plastic dinosaurs, and I learned what they were called.
Okay. So we showed this sequence, and I'm looking back, it is quite gruesome. It's quite bloody, but we thought it's an old film, so whatever. And these kids started getting upset, and one little guy started crying. We had to stop it, and we had to put on Jurassic Park to calm them down. And we said, "What's the matter? What's the problem?" And one little boy put his hand up. He said, "Well," he said, "we thought dinosaurs were extinct. Where did you film this?" And
East London.
we said, "They are extinct." He said, "Well, what is this?" And we said, "I think you said at the time it would have been Jurassic Park: Fallen Kingdom that would have been at the film at the time." We said, "Have you seen Jurassic Park?" And they said, "Yeah, we've seen Jurassic Park." And I said, "Well, then what?
Where do you think they filmed that?"
Why are you bothered?" And another kid put his hand up and he said, "I swear, I wish Ray had been around. He passed at the time, but we should have told him this." And he said, "Well, Jurassic Park is made in the computer, but this is real." And we realised that we twigged what was happening. I couldn't figure it out. But we realised what was happening is that these kids at the age, the only stop motion they've seen was things like Wallace and Gromit and Aardman, things that are very caricatured.
And that was like Wallace and Gromit was when I was a kid, like I was probably like 11, 12, whatever. And because stop motion had kind of wasn't really being used at that point up until that for me was like a new thing. I was like, oh, this is different. This is like, and I learned that stop motion existed through Shaun the Sheep and Wallace the Gromit.
Well, as I say, these kids had seen that, but the only thing we could figure out was that Mark Watson, the museum curator, is that these kids had never seen stop motion used in a realistic format, like with anatomical, realistic muscles and skin textures and looking like real animals, and also attacking each other violently. And had actors in there, live action people and live action backgrounds that are combined with this. So we thought they'd never seen anything where stop motion has been that realistic, and they knew that this stuff was not graphics. They knew you could touch it; it was tactile, and so they kind of their kind of reaction was it was the real thing. They'd never seen anything like this. It was a completely new experience for them. Never seen stop motion used in a violent or anatomically realistic way. So I said better turn it off because they were so. It's obviously this stuff still has impact. It's not of its time. It's not necessarily in the past, and that doesn't work anymore. Not from the experience I had anyway.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, like if you're showing some kids that literally have never seen anything like that in their life because they wouldn't have done. It's new to them. So I can see why they're saying.
Well, okay, I had an experience. I'm not going to name it. It's not embarrassing. But
come on, do we know him?
No, absolutely not. I wouldn't.
I thought it was somebody we might know.
No, I wouldn't name him. Anyway.
I was going to be all for it, like name and shame.
But no. But it's not. But I've got a mate who's actually he's a computer programmer. He's a very technically knowledgeable chap, and this is just before Christmas. And I was down the pub and I showed him some clips from the original King Kong, and there's a scene where Kong comes out of the theatre where he's chained up and he breaks out into the street. And my mate said, "Oh, that's a guy in a suit because he's walking too upright." And I said, "No, he's this tall, he's stop motion." He said, "No, it's a bloke in a suit because he's walking too upright." I said, "No, this is the guy. This is the stop motion model." So a friend of mine who is extremely knowledgeable, extremely a mature adult man, who's watching a film from 1933, thought that shot of Kong was actually a man and he was completely fooled by the stop motion. He just didn't see it as stop motion. So I don't necessarily think that because time moves on.
Well, I think a man I don't care what man it is, unless it's the Andy Serkis who can probably do anything physically. Anybody else cannot move like a giant gorilla. Any man wearing a suit is not, unless you're Andy Serkis, because he probably could. No one's going to be able to move that way.
Well, I've got a friend who's a computer programmer who's very, very knowledgeable.
And he thinks that they can.
And a bunch of 8-year-olds who would argue, say, well, maybe they don't know what they're looking at. So I think that it's, maybe the media, I wonder this over the years, the media are kind of selling us this kind of like not saying a lie, but they're saying, oh, this new technology's come along and you can't believe in the old stuff anymore, and that's gone, that's in the past. I think
it just has such a charm to it. I think watching a film like a Harryhausen movie or anything from the era has got more of a charm. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Jurassic Park. That was when I was a kid, and then the Jurassic Worlds. For me, I'm like, well, hang on, I'm going to say this, but then I'm probably going to diffuse my own quote. Like, any Jurassic Park movie is better than no Jurassic. And this is what I also said with Indiana Jones when the fourth one. And everyone slated. I was like, but any Indiana Jones is better than no Indiana Jones, which I'm still sticking with, because I can watch it now and I'm like, oh, it's okay. Like, it's better than none. Like, I'm glad we have it. As like, you know, because
everyone wondered back in the day. This is going back a few years. Everybody wondered why, with the enormous skills that Industrial Light and Magic and the skill like Phil Tippett. You know, I'm talking. You know these guys. Phil Tippett, who created the walking machines and Empire Strikes Back, and you know those things. These guys were incredibly talented. Why on earth there was no Indiana Jones film with dinosaurs? It absolutely should have happened.
Welcome back to the Screen Princess podcast.
Why, if you have a character, if you have a hero and a storyline and a sense of time and place, it would have better fitted dinosaurs. Is it better than Indiana Jones? He absolutely should have had. Somebody said he should have been like fighting off a Tyrannosaurus with his whip. You know, like,
that's true, because I feel like the first ones, like, yes, it's like, it's obscure, but it was kind of set in a time. But then with the latest one, they kind of go back in time. So then it's like, you could have gone to dinosaurs.
No, I mean, there should have been like...
Or originally, Indiana Jones and the Dinosaurs of Doom.
Well, a Lost World. There should have been some Lost World.
Indiana Jones and the Lost World.
There should have been at least giant snakes, because he's fear of snakes.
Do you know, if anybody now makes Indiana Jones in the Lost World, they heard it here first and we can sue them.
Well, we should, but they should have actually had a giant cobra or something, or a giant boa constrictor, because of his fear of snakes. Would that not have been a perfect?
I saw that Harrison Ford was actually he's actually okay with snakes, I think.
Oh, I'm sure.
And the spiders, like, I would not be okay with the spiders in that scene. But yeah, he was knocking them off the guy's back. I'd be like, ship me out of here.
Also, giant spiders. I mean, there's.
Oh God.
Those things like giant animals and like creepy animals and things, giant gorillas and things and. Giant baboons.
Why didn't they?
All those, absolutely, because they had the effects guys to handle.
People don't necessarily love Temple of Doom, which I still do.
Well, I love Temple of Doom.
Yeah, I do, but that could have replaced that for the masses that don't.
Well, Temple of Doom, because it's like India and cobras. That actually could have had a giant spin in the temple, the Kali temple. Absolutely had a giant cobra. I mean, it's absolutely fitted into that the underground thing with the volcanic, the lava and stuff. But a giant cobra and a giant, like in a temple setting, that they sacrifice people to.
I literally last week was like, because it's really cold at the moment, so when we should, because this is probably, I don't know when these were all going out, because obviously they go out weekly, but it's February as we're shooting this and it's very cold in the northeast, so I had like a little day the other day and I was like, I'm just gonna put my pajamas on and I'm gonna have an Indiana Jones marathon. So I've literally just rewatched them all. It's great, love it.
No, I don't dislike any of them in that respect. I mean, I like the first three, I guess. The last one, I've not actually seen the last one.
Have you seen it? Mm. Well, there's a bridge that they shoot on. I can't think what it's called. It's actually a viaduct. Couldn't tell you the name of the viaduct, but it's in the Scottish borders. And I was living there very briefly while I was waiting to like move house, and I was kind of staying with my boyfriend at the time. And we went on a really lovely hike, probably around this time last year actually, around the Scottish borders and under the viaduct, and there was like pictures where Harrison Ford was standing, and then there's me going like in the same spot as you do.
I actually worked out with Harrison Ford's weights.
Did you?
And then Steven Spielberg's weights as well, yeah. I actually worked out with those ones, yeah, because when I was working on American Tail, for some inexplicable reason, I don't know why, Spielberg only came over to visit once to London, only once. But in the storeroom we had all the art materials, for some reason there were these blue barbells.
Yeah. They
brought over and I said, why is this? They said Spielberg owns these now. But they were the weights that Harrison Ford worked out with for Temple of Doom.
Oh, wow.
So I used to go in there and I used to, I've got to do this.
The weights.
So
I never would have thought American Tail was made in London.
American Tail, well, no, the first one, Don Bluth, was actually made in Los Angeles,
right.
but the second one
that's what I would have thought.
The second one was made in Acton in London.
Right.
Yeah, in a furniture warehouse.
In a furniture warehouse.
Because they started filming in Pinewood, and it was very expensive. And they got the idea that they hired like a shop front in a street, and they found this furniture warehouse that had 3 floors with a very large area full of furniture.
Yeah, I mean, you just need a building, don't you?
It's
You
a
don't
building.
need a...
And of course, no one knew we were there. We got robbed once. People broke in once. Well, it was the cleaners who knew people, and they came in. Luckily, no one, very few of us left any valuables there, but and no one wanted to steal any drawings. We didn't know exactly how valuable they might be.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Didn't have the intelligence to understand that the artwork was quite valuable. But we had 3 floors, and there was us. There was the animation. There was us and the layout people and the animation that we plotted in, and then the paint and trace people who just before digital was just coming in. But there were still all these young women who were. They said young women actually. This is interesting. Young women actually far better at actually rotoscoping, like actually drawing precise lines.
Right.
They've just got this somehow hand to eye.
Do you know, I'll tell you what it is.
Go on.
We practice with the eyeliner.
Oh.
That's what it is. It takes years to get a good flick, and once you can do that,
That was what it was. We go down to the painted trace, and there's 200 young girls down there, all drawing these precise lines and then painting them in, like absolute precision.
I mean, I struggle to draw a stick man. I've perfected eyeliner, but stick men I can't do.
Well, you never know.
No, I've never been an artist. It's never been a thing that I can do.
Is it not?
No.
There might be a hidden talent. It might be something you
It's
can do.
well hidden.
Well, you don't know.
I actually went to fashion school, and we had to do art and drawing.
Right.
It's part of it. And fashion design, like once you've got a template, you can use like the layout pads, and you know, I can visualize the clothes I wanted to make, but getting it down on paper was not really my talent. And I've tried various things, and every now and again I'll have a go, but I'm more like abstract than
well, some people,
yeah.
It's like animation. I mean, animation is a very, very difficult thing. Many people, as kids, they want to get into it because they love race stuff and Disney and whatever, and then they suddenly realise what it involves. They suddenly realise how complicated it is, and they say,
hard
"Oh, I can't do this."
Yeah.
And it is, excuse me, it's very tedious. It's very complicated, and it's very technically demanding. And you remember? I don't know if you remember the Fast Show. Remember the TV series, The Fast Show?
I've heard of it.
And they did a wonderful.
Was it Paul Whitehouse?
Yes, and
So
Charlie
I knew
Hickson.
that, but I've never seen
And
it.
Charlie Hickson. They did a wonderful send-up of Wallace and Gromit.
Right.
And it was Charlie Hickson. It was supposed to be Nick Park, and he was animating a Wallace and Gromit type character. And Paul Whitehouse was the guy interviewing him.
Right.
And Charlie Hickson was going, "Well, you move it just a tiny amount, and you move it just a tiny amount, and Paul Whitehouse said, "Anyone fancy a pint?" Because it really it is that if you're doing it and you're focused, then you're in the moment.
I met him once. I was an extra years ago on When Harry Met Paul.
Oh right, okay.
And I'd done a scene. I was in the gym, and I was young, so I'd never been to a gym at this point because I didn't have to. I was just young and I was skinny, and there was this step machine, and Harry Enfield was like. I was just standing on it looking confused, I think. He had to show me how to use the machine. And then when we were in the lunch queue, Paul Whitehouse, really nice guy, he was like, "Oh, here's a tip, order this, this and this because they're like the best things, but because we've been eating the same thing all week." And I'm like, "Okay, thanks." Anyway, that's off topic.
No, but apparently I've heard they are nice people, yeah. I think people who are, perhaps saying on that, people who are genuinely good at what they do tend to be nice people. It's
the ones who are not,
it's the lack of, I think what it is, it's like people...
The ones who not have egos and the ones who are good. People who get somewhere, it's generally because they have a talent and that's why they've got there.
I think what it is the lack of the need to prove themselves.
Yeah.
They
But also they actually had something, whereas the ones who don't, they concoct it in their head that they do, and then they act like they are be all and end all, and you're like, well...
Ray was very much like that. I mean, Ray being who he was, he could have been very arrogant up himself, but he was kind of, considering what he'd achieved, but he was very much the opposite of that. He was very mild-mannered, he was grateful that people liked what he did. He knew what he'd done. He wasn't kind of like, he wasn't insecure about the quality of his work because he knew what he'd done, but he was incredibly modest.
Well, it's quite a trailblazer, wasn't he? Like, it's like, when you think of stop motion, he's the only name really comes to your head.
Well, Willis O'Brien was first made the original King Kong, and you could really say, well, without O'Brien,
right, true.
so much would not have happened. I mean, this is really true. Ray might have gone into some other creative career. He might have been a paleontologist or an artist or an architect or something. But it's very unlikely, probably not, that he would have gone into stop motion animation or special effects.
So was that his inspiration? Was that who he...
Ray saw King Kong when he was 13, in 1933.
Right.
And he came out of that, he couldn't believe what he'd seen. And that was...
You're kind of like...
We all know this. We all know this because I had this great... I mean, one of the greatest things, this is, you know, one of the greatest things I was able to do ever was because I got to know Ray for 3 years before he passed away. And he became a friend, and it was like something I look back and I can't believe this, because he told me when I was like 13 or 14 that happened. I could not have believed it. So I had this wonderful opportunity. It was so great to be able to say to Ray to his face that the work I'm doing, the restoration stuff, is the greatest professional thing I'll ever do, ever. And it is the truth. It is absolutely the truth. It is, nothing's going to come close to that. Whatever I'm done or whatever I'm going to do, is not that. That's the best. And Ray said he felt the same when he was working for Willis O'Brien, because he felt that was the best thing he was ever going to do in his life. And so it is this thing, it is this magical thing that if you meet people you care about, and you meet people who do things that are inspirational to you and create that positivity in your life, that, you know, how wonderful it is to be able to tell them that.
Yeah.
And it really is wonderful. And so, I mean, really, you know, it's like there's an act of friendship in this, I think. I think that, I mean, I knew Ray, I mean, that was fantastic, but I think that millions of people around the world who, I mean, people I know who've never met Ray, they always call him Ray. Don't call him Ray Harryhausen or Harryhausen, they call him Ray, because they see him as being a friend.
Yeah.
I never met him. So I think an act of friendship, an abstract kind of way of putting it, but if you do something to inspire people's imagination or sense of wonder or positivity in life, I don't think it's necessary for you to physically meet them for that to happen. You know, I think that you can create that impression in someone and make their life different.
Yeah.
And you don't have to physically meet them. So I'm sure there's millions and millions of people who've gone into, you know, their lives have been perhaps made better by people like Ray or Jim Henson or Jerry Anderson or Walt Disney, or people who have, you know, their lives have been improved by people they've never met.
Jerry Anderson's daughter used to be my neighbour when I lived in London.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, Dee. We lived in the same building. It was like a grown-up university campus. It was like all these people that had like real jobs and things, but we had a bar, which was kind of like a student union, a gym. We had a swimming pool. We had a shop, and like we had grounds. So like in the summer, it was like everyone's outside. There'd be festivals. I think she used to sing, so she used to sing at the festival.
Brilliant.
It was like a weird, surreal.
Well,
world.
another person I grew up with. I mean, Jerry Anderson's stuff as a kid. You know, Thunderbirds. I was too young to see Thunderbirds when it was first. It was before my time,
Yeah.
but I saw it like on re-releases, on reissues later on.
I remember my dad loving it.
Well, it was to me, it was like an hour-long special effects program.
And I love Lady Penelope.
Well,
She was all pink. So.
Well, that was the other thing. I was talking to a fellow the other night about this. I mean, you had the Fab One, which is the pink Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
And this was ostensibly a children's program. But I remember very clearly, like Lady Penelope and they're shooting someone off the road, and the car exploded, and they died.
Quite harsh for a kids program.
And you know,
But Animals of Farthing Wood is a harsh. Can you remember that? Like, that's like hardcore. Or Watership Down. They actually, or Bambi.
Watership Down was
Kids
like,
programs
Watership
back
Down was,
then were terrifying.
Well, this was the difference back in the day, because you know we've become so kind of like, I don't know, weakened. But children's programs, so if it was very young kids like Rainbow or Play School or something, but I remember like the things I saw as a kid
Well, harsh.
were they were family audiences. You know, things that really were sometimes. I mean, Disney films, people died. Things died in Disney films.
Well, yeah, even like The Lion King, when Mufasa dies, that's horrific.
Well, Valley of Guangzhou, where the fight sequence that these 8-year-olds started getting freaked out and had to stop the film because they were getting
But
upset.
they can watch The Lion King.
Because, so what?
They can watch The Lion King.
Oh, you think?
Can they?
Well, I don't know, because, but I remember, like, you know, things like 101 Dalmatians, and the whole point of that is that Cruella wants to actually turn these puppies into a fur coat.
Yeah, I've threatened my kittens a few times when they climb the curtains.
And, you know, things of that sort. And I remember, like, Lady and the Tramp, where the dog fights a rat at the end. There's this giant rat that's threatening the baby, and it kills the rat, it kills it. And think this is a kids' film, but this like real life stuff is happening.
But this is why people hate rats when they haven't done anything wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's like a rat's just being a rat. When's a rat ever tried to kill a child? Never.
Well, this is the point. This is obviously a theatricalised version of that, but obviously rats are only the animals that are being made. Rats realistically are being made into what they are because of human.
Yeah, like
it's the
I'm
human
like,
intervention.
save the rats.
No, well, fair enough. But rats in the wild, any animal in the wild, there's no problem with any animal in the wild. It's invariably human
Because
beings.
humans have
who create-
bred too
yeah.
much and taken over their habitats.
Well, it's like human beings who say pigs are like dirty animals, and of course in the wild they're not.
No.
It's only when you put them into a pen and you lock them up and they're forced to
that's
do
where they
whatever
live.
they do. So what else can they do? So
Exactly.
If
And they
you
don't
don't-
roll in mud because it's sunblock. It's clever. Because they have pink skin and they burn. I worked on a kids' farm and we used to have to muddy the pigs, which is one of my favourite jobs. You literally get in the mud and all the water, get mud and then rub it on the pigs to stop them burning.
the only animals really that I don't have a problem with, but is chimpanzees because of their intelligence and.
Okay, I didn't know where that was going. I was like, why has this ever come up in your life?
Because chimpanzees are incredibly aggressive, dangerous animals.
Yeah, I don't want to be in a room with a wild chimpanzee, but in its place and me in my place, it's fine.
But with aggression, human aggression, we actually get it from chimps, don't we? Because we've evolved from chimps. It's not the other way around. I mean, chimps were like that before we were, and we've developed. No, chimps are animals, and it's great, but they've got enough intelligence to actually be malevolent and to be.
Yeah.
Their intelligence is the problem. It's not they're just not pure animals anymore. Chimps are actually human, like they're basic human beings. They're primitive men. They're primitive people.
Yeah.
And that's where they're.
So are a lot of men.
And well, that's where we get it from. Yeah. Oh no question about that. Yeah. No question. Oh no, absolutely. Yeah.
So then, like, how did you then actually end up working with Ray? Or
Well, it was 2009, and Ray had a website. He didn't put much on himself. It was kind of like people, his staff, whatever, who put stuff on. He put Christmas stuff and holidays, and he put bits and pieces on there. But so Ray would have been 89 at the time, and this was just before Christmas 2009. And this post come on. I was looking at it one afternoon. I just looked at it now and again. It was pure luck. I looked at it yesterday, and Ray had this website. Ray had the website post, and he said that. Well, he didn't. Somebody else did. So that in 2010, they wanted to start a program of restoration because there were different galleries asking for Ray's models to be exhibited, and like Carly, Talos, Guanji in particular, and they wanted these things to put into shows. And the problem was that these models were falling apart. They just could not be moved. You couldn't pack them in a box because bits would fall off, and you couldn't certainly put them into a show because they just come apart. And so then on the site said, we're looking to initiate a program of restoration in 2010. They weren't asking for anybody, they didn't say we're looking for anybody, it just said they're going to do it. So I thought they had someone to, but it's at these moments when you have to try. And so I sent an email. I thought, what can I lose?
I was that little boy many years ago at the age of 11 that wrote to you and you liked my drawings. Now here I am again. Did it go like
Pretty
that?
much. So I sent an email. I said, I know how to do this because I've done it all my life. I built these things in the film studios.
In fact, let's just take a pause and get back to this because we've only got about 10 minutes left. And I'm gonna, whilst we have this conversation, I know you've got this talent because we did this recently. I've just toddled off in this outfit, which is actually my Video Shop Tells Terror dress for the premiere later. And
I'm pretty sure they gave it to you for nothing for that.
Yeah, no, I just went shopping. Like I just ran through a mall dressed like this, and if you see the rest of it, I'm like basically.
If you had to pay for that, it's a crime.
Well, it was 75p from Poundland, and in Poundland, things don't even cost £1 anymore. They cost like £3, but this was only 75p. So this is like an empty, completely unopened packet of blue tack, and trim your hands. There's nothing. So I know that whilst we have like the next 10 minutes of chatter. If I hand this, do you just want one? I bought two in case you need two.
Give me a piece of it, so I'll take it.
You can have the whole thing. I'm going to hand this to Al, and I don't know, like, what do you think we should make today?
It'll take more than 10 minutes. Well, I see. I'll screw it. It's going to take a while.
Okay, it's okay.
Okay, I'll make it happen.
Hang on, I feel like when we were out having curry, 10 minutes later, I was through my starter, and you make it like warm and, you know, mouldable. Malleable, is that what the word is? Malleable? I don't think I've ever said that word in a sentence before. So, this is a kind of trick that Al will do. Behind his back, he'll make It's not I can ask the viewers what you'd like him to make, but what were you thinking today? Last time you made me the little frilled dinosaur, because it's a Dilophosaurus or something?
Dilophosaurus.
It's my favourite one from Jurassic Park, the original Jurassic Park. And you made me one of those. And I took it home in, you know, the sauce pots you get in a restaurant when they send you takeaway. And I've actually still got it. It's in my bedroom, wrapped in tissue, in the pot.
Okay.
I don't think you can't like fire blue tack, can you, in the...
No.
So it's going to live in the pot forever, I think. And then one day I should have brought some Fimo when I could have fired it and kept it forever. Actually surprised me today. Like, let's just continue this chat. Tell me about how you ended up working for Ray, and you can surprise me with this. You can look if you want. You don't have to do it behind your back. It's up to you.
No, I think.
Okay.
So got it. Okay.
So carry on from where you left off.
So I sent an email, and I just said I can do this. I know how to do this. And I thought that they would get back and say, well, thank you, but, you know, we've got someone to do it. We've got it covered. And they didn't. They said, well, you know, Ray knows who you are. He'd heard of me. I couldn't believe that.
Did you love that?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Oh, God, yeah. So they said, do you want to come down to the BAFTA building in early January to talk about... I said, yes, I do. And yes. So I went down with some models and some drawings, and Ray had seen this stuff. I'm not sure how. Obviously my stuff was online, so somehow he'd accessed this. Somehow he'd been able to see this stuff.
It just shows how like your career progressed by this point where they knew what you were doing.
I guess. So I spoke to one of Ray's people, and he said, like, Ray's very interested, and we can't find, this is what he said, we can't find anyone in England to do this, to repair the models. They don't know, this is what he said. He said that they don't know how to do it. I said, you said you know how to do this. Like, do you mean that? I said, well, yeah. I said, I've got this new material, like a polymer acrylic that I developed for my own models to restore them, to build. They said, right, well, come down and have a chat. And it went on for a couple of months. It wasn't immediate. And Ray was nearly 90 at the time when I went to speak to him. I went to his house. I had a chat for a couple of hours. For 5 minutes. I went in through the door and I thought, my God, he's sitting. I thought, this is Ray Harryhausen. And just for a minute, I was a bit freaked. I thought, no, calm yourself, because, you know, this is serious. And so he was great. His wife was there. She was wonderful. They're really, really friendly people. And so I spent the next couple of hours chatting about different things, and we spoke about different subjects, a bit like this, because he didn't, you know, it wasn't just on model making or. I had a load of models, a huge bag of models I took down. He went through the different things, some quite gruesome stuff, and it was quite amusing. And we ended up, which is one of the great things, ended up talking about Lauren Hardy, because Ray's a huge Lauren Hardy fan, or was a lot, you know, and so that we had that thing in common, and we talked about the dialogue from Lauren Hardy films and all sorts of things, and we're sitting there drinking coffee and eating chocolate biscuits, which we did all through those 3 years of knowing him.
What type of biscuits? Like
they were
chocolate digestives?
They were German. They were German. They were like a very thin.
Okay.
Very thin with like chocolate, really nice.
Were they really thin with chocolate on one side?
Yes.
Yeah, I know the ones.
They were really nice chocolate biscuits. And so we'd end up invariably talking about Lauren Hardy, very modest about his own films. You'd have to draw him out to talk about his own. If I was repairing a model based on one of his films, then I could actually get him out to talk about it. But generally, he'd rather talk about King Kong or, you know, the old Frankenstein films, James Whale movies, Old Dark House and stuff. So anyway, so for about 3 hours we had a chat, and he gave me a model. It was from Valley of Guangxi. It's a little boy called Lopi, who's about 3 inches tall. The model was carried away by a pterodactyl, and I think his attitude was, if you ruin this, it's not too much of a problem. So he gave me that. So I took it away and I repaired it and I brought it back. He said, okay, we like that. He said, we'll give you something a bit more complicated. And I thought he meant a bit more complicated.
Is it a lot more?
And he brought out one of the dinosaurs from 1 million years BC that you may be familiar with.
I am.
It was the Allosaurus that gets impaled on a pole by John Richardson.
Right.
He runs up onto a pole and he gets impaled.
Yeah.
This thing was, his tail was gone, the feet were gone. It was a...
Oh, that's so sad.
But
also so good that he still had it.
And yeah, and it was all in pieces. And the left arm was gone. I thought, God almighty. And he said, can you repair that? And I said, yeah. I knew I could. I would never have offered myself up if I couldn't do it. So I took it away and I did it. And Ray was very happy, and he said, okay, would you want to be our actual restorer now? I said, are you asking me that question?
That is amazing.
And so he gave me the figurehead from Golden Voyage of Sinbad to repair next. And then it was the giant shell from a replacement shell for
Is
the
that
giant.
with Caroline Monroe?
Yeah.
Because she's here tomorrow.
Oh, is she?
She is. So you should come back.
Oh, I
tomorrow
will
night.
come
You
back.
should
I
come
know
back
Caroline. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
she's back tomorrow
Caroline.
night.
And so I repaired the figurehead, and then it was the shell from a giant cephalopod, the giant octopus with a shell from Mysterious Island. And Ray had left the original shell in Shepperton Studios in 1960. So can you make me a new one? So
I wonder who has it now.
I made one out of fiberglass for him. Yeah, I don't know where that went. And I made a new one out of fiberglass, and then it was. He said, "Can you make new swords for the skeletons from Josie and the Argonauts because they'd all been lost over the years?" And I said, "You're kidding me about this because all these memories come back to me when I saw Josie and I was on TV when I was 10. First time I saw it was on television. And I was 10. And I remember making plasticine swords, trying to match the ones that I'd seen
Like this.
on the screen.
Behind your back.
And then, not behind my back, no. And I thought, now you're asking me to make actual swords for the skeletons, and it was crazy.
It's like a dream, isn't it? It's literally like people are asking you to. What have we got?
It is. And it is. It is.
Brontosaurus. He's amazing. Like, check this out. That's behind your back. I'm going to keep him too. I'm going to take him home somehow. I'll find a bigger pot. I'll stuff him in my wine glass and steal it. I won't steal from Lumiere Cinemas. I won't. He's amazing. Look at this. I'm going to carry on. There you go. That's literally the one from like where he turns her head and she looks in Jurassic Park. It's amazing. What a talent though. But obviously you're way more talented than making a dinosaur behind your back. But who can make a dinosaur behind the back? And you have done it in less than 5 minutes. You said it's going to take more than 10. Yeah, because we were on like 40. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. We were on like 49. That was like 56. So
fair enough. Yeah. Okay.
So you've done it in like 5 minutes, which is incredible. But yeah, so you work with loads of different mediums. So you do like the fiberglass. You work with all kinds of different materials. But how did you end up like going? I mean, it's just art. Just whatever works.
It's the process. It depends what you want to do. I mean, it depends what. I mean, there are many materials, more materials now than there were back in the day when Ray was. I mean, Ray had different things available, but now there are dozens of different things, different mediums. So it really is a matter of choosing what is the best material to get the best results. It's like nowadays the silicone rubber, which Ray didn't have access to back in the 60s and 70s or the 50s. Silicone rubber is much more durable, it's much more less biodegradable latex and foam latex. This is why they need restoring.
Yeah.
If Ray had made them out of silicone, maybe by now they might have been going a bit, but silicone rubber is much more durable and much more. This is used for prosthetics now. It's much, latex is not so. It's still usable. You still do incredible things with latex and foam latex, but with like fiberglass and like the resins. I mean, I use fiberglass for the shell because it was like trying to keep to the integrity of the original because it was back in 1960. But that's a polyester resin. Nowadays you've got polyurethane resins, which are what they call fast cast. They set in 5 minutes. Fiberglass sets overnight. It depends how much stuff you do. But I use it for the shell to keep the integrity of the original. But there is massive advances in materials now. So it all comes down to working out the best materials to get the best results out of what you're doing, really.
So do you work from home or do you have do you have a workshop?
Oh,
or
both.
Do you have a workshop?
Yeah, both. Yeah.
So
very secret place.
Well, I'm not going to ask
no.
there. I might secretly ask to visit one day, but because I feel like we're literally coming to the end of we're almost at an hour. I literally said to you, because you do other stuff too, we're like, well, we can do like half and half. We can talk about this half of it, half of the haunty kind of paranormal stuff. We haven't even got there. We're not going to get there today. So we're probably going to have to come back next year at Romford or next year at Horror, somewhere in between, because I even feel like we haven't finished talking about this and we're just going to be out of time. And I did only think I was going to steal you for half an hour and get like a bit, because I feel a bit bad stealing people for, for a full hour during a festival. But I know you did come especially for this today, so I don't feel so bad stealing you away from watching stuff.
I could stay as long as you like.
No, I know, but it's an hour, but I think we're going to have to do a part 2 at some point, because I feel like we could talk for ages. Like, we haven't even got right into Harryhausen stuff. Like, we've got to the beginning of it.
There's nothing, not at all. There is a huge amount of material. With the foundation, there are books that I've been asked to be involved in. Well, there's a whole book out there, basically just how those things are made. Because what's happened very briefly with the restoration work. I
mean, I'm not going to rush it. We can go over time. It's fine.
But, well, you take as long as you like.
We're good.
But the way Ray's models are built is very different from the way that it's always been believed. It's completely different. I knew when I was a kid, I used to read interviews with Ray talking about how his models are made. He used to drop little hints about the different things. I thought that sounds different from the way that these other things are happening. But it wasn't until I actually got into the models and started taking some of them apart. Ray said, I said, what if these things are so badly damaged? And he said, well, just cut into them. He said, just do what you need to do. He said,
were you like, no, I cannot do that?
No, I said, like, what do you want? How far into this do you want? He said, well, can you make them look like they're actually brand new models? I said, well, I can, but it might take some. I said, what do I do if it's. He said, well, cut into them, take bits apart, put them back in and do whatever. So Ray giving me that instruction was give me the freedom to do that. And what I discovered was the way they're constructed physically is very, very different from the way that many people have thought they were made over the years.
Yeah.
Most people thought that what you do is like with Ray's models, you build a sculpture, make a mould, and you build an armature, which is a steel ball and socket joint skeleton that enables the animation because it's stiff and you can move it and stays where and then they put that inside the mould, or Ray put it inside the mould, and you fill it with liquid latex, foam latex, put it in the oven, you bake it, and it cures the rubber, turns it a solid rubber.
Right.
So you get that out, take the mould apart. So now you've got a foam latex copy of your original sculpture with a skin texture and everything. But inside is the armature encased, so now you could animate it. And of course everybody thought that, but what was really happening is that Ray used what they call a build-up technique, where you take the armature and actually build it up with foam latex and cotton wool muscles, build them up one by one like a taxidermist.
Jesus.
Construct that thing so it was really densely packed, and then put it inside the mould and only fill up that much foam latex around the outside.
So it's harder work.
Yeah.
Like, that was more work went into that. Have you ever done any taxidermy?
Oh yeah.
You have?
God, yes. I'm
is that how you start?
Yeah.
Do you go, right, I'm going to, because that's, I guess, a way of learning to, and then...
Oh, I've stuffed many things over the years. Yes. Because
I'm like, obviously vegan and, animal rightsy, but like, I think if it's roadkill, fine. Obviously don't go shooting things.
I've worked for a taxidermy company that I didn't actually do any animal parts for that. What I did, they asked me to. They had a section of a department where they had things they could hide out to film companies, like props, like the mummified hands and dead people and.
What, real ones?
Oh no, only what I built.
Oh, well, it's not taxidermy then, is it? That's.
Oh no, I'm saying I didn't do anything for taxi. The
oh, okay. I thought you were like, yeah, I taxidermy.
Oh no, not for those people. No, but I have actually. When I was younger, I got into it because I thought it was an interesting thing. It was a necessary.
I do think it's fascinating. I don't have an issue with it as long as it's not been shot for purpose. Like if it's
no animals were harmed in the course of my taxidermy.
I've actually seen some really good stuff, which is like where they've done like scenes of like a mice in a circus, and it's like I think so. I don't think I would have it in my house, but I think actually.
Well, I think that part of the. Fiji mermaids, if you're familiar with Fiji mermaids.
Yes, I know the little taxidermy mermaids. Were they like half fish, half monkey or something?
They were half fish and half monkey, and they used other stuff in there. They used like wood and they used cotton wool and all sorts of things. But basically, back in the day, it wasn't as we're not as animal friendly as we are now.
No, and I can understand that people didn't know stuff.
I can say that when Ray's collection, all the stuff I'd restored went to Oklahoma back in 2017. There was a huge problem with getting the stuff through customs because they were a lot of these animals had fur and feathers. Yeah. And they said, well, are these endangered species? And Ray would never have done that. Ray, back in the day.
This is a very endangered species of dinosaur.
Ray would never have done that back in the day.
Mm.
But of course he did use animal fur because
Yeah, but
he said,
everyone
and he
did.
said he went to, there was a taxidermy company like in London near Tower Bridge, and he said it always depressed him going in there because he said you go in there and you see all this stuff, and he thought, are there any animal species ever alive in the world anymore? Because there were so many of these things. But so Ray used to do Ray was actually very animal. He was a very passionate man. He had lots of pets. He had lots of cats and dogs, and he had a cat called Sinbad. And
I love that. Does Caroline know that?
Caroline, I'm sure she knows that because he had a cat called Sinbad, and he used to film the eyes for Sinbad in the Eye of the Tiger, the saber-toothed tiger. He photographed his cat's eyes to get the impression of the eyes. So,
which, do you know what? That in itself is a job of work. But trying to keep a cat still to take a picture of it is like, I'm like trying to get a nice shot, and she's that way, and the boy one's got his foot in my face, and you're never getting it right.
Well, yeah, this is, and I say I could appreciate it because I used to film my cat running around the garden and try and get.
What's your cat called?
Oh, my cat was called Mickey.
Mickey.
Yeah, and Ray used to Ray went to the London Zoo to photograph the tigers to get those the muscles and things working so he could actually animate those. But back in the day, it wasn't. There were so many regarding fur and feathers. Ray did use real fur and feathers for these things because it was available at the time.
I think even people now would use feathers, and maybe wouldn't use fur, but feathers you can't really replicate very well.
No, you can't. No, there's a lot of stories about the way that was done back in the day, but
Don't tell me.
Don't tell me. No, not horrible stories. No, but just this technical work, but we don't have the time.
Which does mean you're going to have to come back. We're going to have to do this again, which is like a date for next year.
Okay.
Come back and we'll literally pick up where we left off and tell you about the fur and the feathers, the rest of the Harryhausen stuff. This is literally going to leave people on a cliffhanger for I don't know, a while. It might not be a year. It might be. We might meet up at some other point somewhere. Maybe I'll be in London. I can come to you and do that. And also the paranormal stuff, which I'm very quickly. You write for the 40 in Time sometimes and have done, and you're into all kinds of paranormal stuff. So that's like completely different. But we can go there too.
Sure. Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to buy you I was going to say buy you wine. I'm the one drinking wine. I'm going to buy you a again.
Whatever that is.
I do. It's gluten-free and vegan-friendly.
There you go.
So well done.
So you didn't know that, did you?
I don't tell other people what to eat and drink, but let's go and get some drinks. Thank you so much for this.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.